"Don't be sad, sir. You can have my mum," the boy told the lonely Duke sitting in the snow. Before we begin this heartbreaking Victorian romance, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love seeing our reading circle span the globe, and if you enjoy stories of grief transformed by love, unexpected tenderness, and the wisdom of children, subscribe to Duke's Royal Library now. You won't want to miss what happens next. On a frozen Christmas Eve in 1840 London, Nicholas Alistair Blackthorne, Duke of Ravensbridge, sits alone in Hyde Park, shattered by his mother's recent death. At 32, he commands wealth and power, yet possesses nothing that truly matters, until a 5-year-old boy with jam-stained mittens and fearless compassion changes everything. Jamie Theodore Whitlow doesn't understand that dukes aren't supposed to cry. He only knows a sad man needs help. His mother makes excellent biscuits, and sharing is what good people do. His impulsive invitation, "Don't be sad, sir. You can have my mom," pulls Nicholas into the orbit of Eliza Whitlow, a widow navigating her own grief while raising a son whose heart is too large for his small body. What begins as a Christmas meal becomes something far more profound. Nicholas finds himself drawn to Jamie's uncomplicated joy and to Eliza's quiet strength, her warmth, the way she sees past his title to the lonely man beneath. As winter deepens into spring, so does connection. Desire builds slowly, humor breaks through darkness, and two wounded hearts begin to heal. But when Jamie falls dangerously ill, Nicholas must confront what terrifies him most, that he's fallen in love not just with the idea of family, but with Eliza herself. And Eliza must decide if loving again means betraying the past, or honoring it by embracing the future. This is a story of chosen family, second chances, and a child whose pure heart teaches two broken souls how to live again. The snow fell thick and silent over Hyde Park that Christmas Eve, transforming London into something almost sacred. Golden lamplight shimmered against white paths. Families laughed, their breath forming clouds in the frozen air. Couples walked arm in arm, their voices soft with contentment. And on a secluded iron bench, far from the cheerful crowds, a duke came undone. Nicholas Alistair Blackthorne, Duke of Ravensbridge, sat hunched forward, expensive gloves pressed to his face, shoulders trembling as grief finally claimed what pride had held back for 3 long weeks. 3 weeks since he'd watched his mother's coffin lowered into frozen ground. 3 weeks of duty, condolences, and carefully maintained composure. 3 weeks of being the Duke, never just Nicholas. Now, on Christmas Eve, the weight crushed him. His townhouse in Grosvenor Square stood empty except for servants who moved like ghosts through echoing rooms. His country estate at Ravensbridge waited in silence. He had declined every invitation, every offer of holiday company. He had nowhere to go, no one who truly wanted him rather than the Duke of Ravensbridge. The realization broke something fundamental inside him. He didn't hear the small footsteps approaching through the snow, only a voice, clear and unafraid, cutting through his anguish. "Mr. Why are you crying?" Nicholas's head snapped up. Before him stood a boy no older than 5, bundled in a wool coat with a scarf wrapped crookedly around his neck, pink cheeks, brown eyes wide with concern. In one mittened hand, he clutched what appeared to be a half-eaten biscuit. In the other, a handkerchief bearing a suspicious stain that might have been jam. "My mama says crying helps when your heart gets too heavy," the boy continued solemnly. He extended the dubious handkerchief. "You can use mine. I already used it for my nose, but the other side is mostly clean." Nicholas stared, completely at a loss. In his entire adult life, no one had acknowledged his vulnerability. No one had dared. Yet here was this tiny person, offering comfort with the uncomplicated directness only a child possessed. Nicholas's voice emerged rough, broken. He cleared his throat. "Thank you, but I couldn't possibly. Are you sad because it's Christmas?" The boy didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he climbed onto the bench beside Nicholas with the ease of someone who'd never learned to fear dukes or social hierarchies. "I was sad at Christmas last year because my papa had just gone to be with the angels. Mama says they needed him more than we did, which seems rather selfish of the angels if you ask me." He paused, then added quickly, "Mama says I mustn't say such things though." The boy's matter-of-fact delivery startled a sound from Nicholas that wasn't quite a laugh, but close. "Your father," Nicholas managed. "He passed away?" The boy nodded seriously. "He got very sick. And then one day he just went to sleep and didn't wake up. But then she said we had to be brave, and that Papa would want us to still have Christmas and be happy." He studied Nicholas with disconcerting intensity. Are you alone too? Is that why you're crying? Nicholas found himself unable to lie to those earnest brown eyes. Yes, my mother died recently. Oh. The boy's expression filled with such genuine sympathy that Nicholas felt his throat tighten again. That's terribly sad. Mamas are the best thing in the whole world. He paused thoughtfully. Well, except for puppies. But puppies don't give hugs quite as well. Despite everything, Nicholas felt the corners of his mouth twitch. You should have a new mama then, the boy announced. I'm afraid that's not quite how it works, but it should work that way. The boy's tone suggested this was obvious. When Mrs. Henderson's cat died, she got a new cat, and now she's happy again. You should get a new mama. One cannot simply acquire a new mother, Nicholas said gently. No, I suppose not. The boy sighed dramatically. Then his face brightened with sudden inspiration. But you know what? You could have mine. Nicholas blinked. I beg your pardon? Well, not have her like she's your mama. That would be silly because you're grown up. But you could. He struggled to find the right words, his small face scrunching in concentration. Nicholas waited, oddly captivated by this strange little creature who had invaded his solitude. You could come to our house and have Christmas with us, the boy declared triumphantly. My mama makes the most delicious biscuits in all of England, and she knows how to make sad people feel better. She's very good at it. She made me feel better when Papa died, and Mrs. Henderson when her cat died, and even our cook when her sister moved to Yorkshire. That's very kind, Nicholas began. And she's alone too. The boy was warming to his theme now, bouncing slightly on the bench. Well, not alone, because she has me, but she doesn't have a husband anymore, and sometimes I hear her crying at night when she thinks I'm asleep. His voice dropped to a whisper. Papa used to make her laugh all the time, and now she mostly only smiles at me, which is nice, but I think she should have more reasons to smile, don't you? Nicholas found himself genuinely moved by the boy's obvious love for his mother. I'm certain your mother is very fortunate to have such a thoughtful son. I'm Jamie, the boy announced, extending his sticky hand with formal gravity. Jamie Theodore Whitlow. I'm 5 3/4, which is nearly 6, which is nearly grown up. Nicholas shook the small hand gravely. Nicholas Alistair Blackthorne. I'm 32, which I'm told is actually grown up, though some days I wonder. Jamie's eyes grew round. Blackthorne like the Duke of Ravensbridge. Mama pointed out your house once when we drove past Grosvenor Square. She said you're one of the most important dukes in all of London. One of them, perhaps. Did you know, Jamie leaned in conspiratorially, that your house has 17 chimneys? I counted them. Well, Mama counted them because I can only count to 10 properly, but I helped. Nicholas felt something warm and unfamiliar bloom in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to affection. This ridiculous, wonderful child with his biscuit crumbs and earnest concern and complete lack of fear was exactly what Nicholas's frozen heart needed. Jamie! A woman's voice called out, tinged with panic. Jamie Whitlow, where have you gone? That's Mama. Jamie jumped up, still holding Nicholas's hand with surprising strength. Mama! Over here. I found someone who needs your help. Nicholas tried to stand, to compose himself, to somehow transform back into the formidable Duke of Ravensbridge before this woman arrived. But Jamie's grip was surprisingly strong. His face was still wet with tears, and there was absolutely no way to salvage his dignity. A figure emerged from between the snow-draped trees, moving quickly. She was petite, wrapped in a dark blue cloak, her bonnet slightly askew as if she'd been running. As she drew closer, Nicholas could see she was perhaps 28 or 30, with delicate features and brown eyes that currently reflected both relief at finding her son and alarm at the situation she'd discovered him in. She stopped dead when she saw Jamie holding hands with a tall gentleman whose expensive greatcoat and aristocratic bearing were unmistakable, even through his obvious distress. Jamie. Her voice emerged as a mortified whisper. What are you? She recognized him, and her face flooded with color. Your Grace. I am so terribly sorry. Jamie, release His Grace's hand this instant. But Mama. He's sad, Jamie protested, tightening his grip. His mama died, just like Papa did, and he was crying all alone, and it's Christmas Eve. We can't just leave him here. The woman, Mrs. Whitlow, Nicholas's mind supplied, looked as if she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. Jamie, His Grace has you, cannot simply. She took a deep breath, clearly trying to gather her composure. Your Grace, please forgive my son's forwardness. He sometimes forgets his manners in his enthusiasm to help others. Jamie, come here at once. But Nicholas surprised himself by speaking first. Please don't apologize. Your son has been unexpectedly kind. I find I'm grateful for the company. Mrs. Whitlow's eyes widened slightly. She studied his face, still marked with tears despite his attempts at composure, and something softened in her expression. Mama, I told him about your biscuits, Jamie said proudly, and about how you make everyone feel better. And I said he should come have Christmas with us because nobody should be alone on Christmas, and Papa would say that's the right thing to do. Wouldn't he, Jamie? Mrs. Whitlow's voice held equal parts exasperation and affection. She looked at Nicholas with obvious mortification. Your Grace, I cannot apologize enough. My son has a very generous heart, but he doesn't quite understand the boundaries of, are your biscuits truly as delicious as he claims? Nicholas heard himself ask. Mrs. Whitlow blinked, clearly not expecting the question. Yes, I suppose they're quite good. I use my grandmother's recipe with cinnamon and... She stopped, seeming to realize the absurdity of discussing biscuits with the Duke of Ravensbridge in Hyde Park on Christmas Eve. Your Grace, surely you have plans for the evening? Jamie shouldn't have presumed. I have no plans. The admission came out more starkly than Nicholas intended. My mother recently passed, and I find myself, that is... He couldn't finish. The grief rose up again, catching in his throat. Oh, you poor man, Mrs. Whitlow said softly, and the genuine compassion in her voice nearly undid him completely. I lost my husband last year. I know something of that particular darkness. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Nicholas saw someone who truly understood, not someone offering empty condolences or awkward platitudes, but someone who had walked through the same valley of grief. See, Mama. Jamie tugged on both their hands now, having somehow acquired his mother's as well. You can help him. That's what you do. You help people. Mrs. Whitlow bit her lip, clearly torn between propriety and compassion. Nicholas watched her internal struggle with unexpected intensity, realizing that he desperately wanted her to extend the invitation her son had offered, not because of duty or charity, but because something about this small family had already begun to thaw the ice around his heart. Your Grace, she said finally, her voice gentle, if you truly have no other commitments this evening, and if you could forgive the informality and the certain chaos that comes with a 5-year-old's presence, Jamie and I would be honored to share our Christmas Eve supper with you. There will be biscuits, Jamie added enthusiastically. And Mama always makes too much food anyway, and I know lots of stories and songs. And, Jamie, breathe, his mother said with a small smile before turning back to Nicholas. Truly, Your Grace, you would be most welcome. Our home is modest compared to your own, I'm certain, but there's warmth and good food, and... She hesitated, and perhaps we could all use the company on what can be a rather lonely evening. Nicholas knew he should decline. This was irregular at best. The social difference between a duke and the widow of a gentleman was considerable. He barely knew these people. Accepting such an invitation defied every rule of propriety he'd been taught. Yet as he looked at Jamie's hopeful face and saw the understanding in Mrs. Whitlow's eyes, Edmund found all his objections dissolving like snow in warmth. I would like that very much, he said quietly, if you're certain it wouldn't be an imposition. Not at all, Jamie crowed, jumping up and down. Mama, the Duke is coming to Christmas. Papa would be so happy. Remember how he always said we should help people who are sad? Mrs. Whitlow's eyes grew bright with unshed tears, but she smiled. Yes, darling. Papa would indeed be very happy. She turned to Nicholas, and her smile softened. Come then, Your Grace. Our house is just a short walk from here, and please call me Eliza. I think if we're to share Christmas Eve, we can dispense with some formalities. Nicholas, he replied, feeling something loosen in his chest. Please call me Nicholas. Jamie grabbed both their hands again, beginning to pull them along the snowy path. This is going to be the best Christmas ever. Wait until you see our parlor. Mama decorated with holly and ivy, and we have the most enormous goose for dinner. And after we eat, Mama lets me stay up late, and we sit by the fire and tell stories. As they walked through Hyde Park, Jamie chattering between them, Nicholas caught Eliza's eye over the boy's head. She gave him a small, understanding smile that seemed to say, I know this is strange, but perhaps strange is exactly what we both need tonight. And for the first time in 3 weeks, perhaps for the first time in years, Nicholas felt something besides the cold emptiness that had become his constant companion. He felt hope. The Whitlow house on Upper Brook Street radiated warmth. Matthews, the elderly butler, took Nicholas's greatcoat with barely concealed astonishment as Jamie pulled him toward the stairs. "We have to see my soldiers first," Jamie announced with the determination of a general. "Papa gave them to me before he went away." Jamie's bedroom was a warm chaos, books, toys, drawings pinned haphazardly to walls, but the corner caught Nicholas's attention. Wooden soldiers arranged with surprising tactical precision. "This is the infantry," Jamie explained, dropping to his knees. "And these are the cavalry. Do you know about battles, Nicholas?" Nicholas lowered himself to the floor. "Expensive trousers be damned. My father studied Wellington's strategies." Jamie's eyes lit like Christmas lanterns. "Wellington? Look, I can show you Waterloo." "Well, sort of. Some soldiers have to do double duty." As Jamie mixed historical details with pure imagination, Nicholas felt something unfamiliar, grief still present, but Jamie's enthusiasm creating spaces where light could penetrate. "You look much less sad now," Jamie said suddenly, studying Nicholas with unnerving intensity. "Mama says that happens when people have something besides sadness to think about. She says sadness is important because it means we loved someone, but we can't let it be the only thing in our hearts." Nicholas's throat tightened. "Your mother sounds very wise." "She is. She's the wisest person I know, and the prettiest." Jamie paused, tilting his head. "Do you think she's pretty?" The directness made Nicholas laugh. "I've only just met your mother." "But you have eyes, don't you?" Jamie persisted. "I knew Mrs. Henderson was pretty right away, even though she's very old, probably nearly 40. Nicholas bit back another laugh. "Your mother is very lovely." "I knew it," Jamie bounced. "That's good, because she deserves someone who thinks she's pretty. Papa always told her she was beautiful." His face grew serious. "Does anyone tell you you're handsome?" That's not really." "Because you are. Very handsome. Dark and brooding, like the hero in Mama's novels that she thinks I don't know about. She reads them when she thinks I'm asleep, and sighs at the romantic parts." "Jamie." Eliza's mortified voice came from the doorway. She stood there, face flushed scarlet, hair styled simply with rebellious curls escaping around her face. "I was just saying Nicholas is handsome, like the men in your books," Jamie said innocently. "The ones with dark hair and mysterious pasts." "That is quite enough," Eliza said firmly, fighting a smile. "Supper is ready." Jamie sighed dramatically but headed for the door. As he passed, he stage whispered, "I think he likes you, Mama. He said you were lovely." "Jamie Whitlow." But Jamie was already running down the hall, giggles echoing. Nicholas rose, brushing off his trousers. Eliza stood in the doorway, hands pressed to flaming cheeks. "I am so terribly sorry. He has no filter whatsoever." "Please don't apologize." Nicholas moved toward her. "He's wonderful. I can't remember the last time I laughed so much." Eliza's embarrassment softened. "Even in the darkest days after Charles died, Jamie found ways to make me smile." She studied his face. "You do look better, less haunted." "I feel better," Nicholas smiled. "Your son has a gift." Their eyes met, and for a moment the air felt charged with something neither could name. Something that felt dangerously like possibility. Supper was beautiful chaos. Jamie talked non-stop, asking increasingly personal questions. Do dukes wear their coronets to bed? Occasionally forgetting to eat until Eliza gently reminded him. "Mrs. Henderson's cat climbed our garden tree and couldn't get down, and the footman had to get a ladder, but the cat jumped on his head, and he said a word that rhymed with Jamie," Eliza interrupted, cheeks coloring. "His Grace understands without the vocabulary details." "Sorry, Mama." Jamie grinned at Nicholas. "Grown-ups say very interesting words when they think children aren't listening." "I'm certain you have," Nicholas said seriously. "Do you say interesting words when frustrated?" "Jamie." Eliza's flush deepened. "I do," Nicholas admitted. "Usually reviewing parliamentary bills. On trying days." I've uttered, "Bloody hell." Jamie's eyes went wide. "You said bloody hell? Mama, did you hear?" "Yes, thank you both," Eliza said, laughing despite herself. Nicholas saw genuine amusement in her eyes mixed with something like appreciation. She was probably accustomed to people treating Jamie with distant politeness or annoyance, but Nicholas wasn't exhausted. He was energized. Tell me about your father teaching you history, Nicholas said. Jamie's face lit, though sadness flickered behind his excitement. Papa loved history. He was going to take me to the Tower of London next spring, but then he got sick. Eliza reached across the table to squeeze her son's hand, eyes bright with tears. I miss him, Jamie said softly, especially at Christmas. I understand, Nicholas said. I miss my mother terribly, especially today. Something passed between them, recognition of shared pain transcending age. But you know what? Jamie brightened. We're both here now. We're not alone anymore. At least not tonight. I think that's what Papa and your mama would want for us, not to be alone. The simple wisdom struck Nicholas like a physical blow. This child had articulated exactly what he needed to hear. After supper, they settled in the parlor, where fire crackled cheerfully. A small tree stood in the corner, decorated with paper ornaments clearly made by childish hands. I made those stars, Jamie said proudly. They're supposed to be angels, but the wings look like long arms. Mama says they're perfect anyway. They are perfect, Eliza confirmed. Because you made them with love. Nicholas studied the tree, thinking of his elaborate decorations that cost more than most families spent on food. This simple tree was worth far more. Do you have a tree? Jamie asked. Nicholas's chest tightened. Not this year. Jamie's face fell with genuine distress. No tree? But Nicholas, you must have a tree. Papa always said Christmas trees remind us that life keeps growing even in winter. You need to remember that. Nicholas knelt beside him, profoundly moved. You're right. Thank you for reminding me. Jamie threw his arms around Nicholas's neck, and Nicholas found himself holding the small body, feeling the rapid heartbeat. When had someone last embraced him with such uncomplicated affection? You can share our tree, Jamie said. And next year you'll have your own. Promise. I promise, Nicholas whispered. They settled by the hearth, Jamie on the floor, Eliza in her chair, Nicholas across from her. Firelight cast warm shadows. When I was your age, Nicholas began, my father taught me to ice skate. I was confident I could simply walk onto the ice and glide. I fell flat on my face, then fell again, and again 20 times in 10 minutes. Jamie giggled. You fell even though you're a duke? Being a duke doesn't prevent falling. Nicholas smiled. My father laughed so hard he could barely stand. Finally he helped me up and said, Nicholas, everyone falls. The trick is to fall forward, not back. If you're going to fail, fail while trying to move ahead. That's very wise, Jamie said seriously. Did you get better? Eventually, but I remembered fall forward. It became my motto. I like that, Jamie said, looking at Eliza. Did you hear, Mama? I heard, darling, Eliza said softly. Excellent advice. Nicholas looked at her over Jamie's head. Firelight played across her features, illuminating gentle intelligence in her eyes, the soft curve of her mouth. She watched her son with such tender attention, such obvious love. She's remarkable, Nicholas thought, not just lovely, but truly remarkable. As evening wore on, Jamie grew quieter. His head drooped onto his mother's lap. Someone is ready for bed, Eliza said, stroking his hair. No, I'm not, Jamie protested weakly. I'm just resting my eyes. Nicholas stood. I should leave. Jamie's eyes snapped open. No, you can't leave. It's Christmas Eve. You're supposed to stay until midnight. Jamie, His Grace has been very patient. Please. Jamie sat up. We haven't had biscuits yet, and I wanted to show Nicholas my storybook. Nicholas looked at Eliza uncertainly. I don't wish to overstay. You're not, she said, warmth in her voice. Truly, if you'd like to stay, we'd be delighted. Their eyes met, and Nicholas felt that the dangerous flutter intensified. Something was happening here beyond simple kindness, something that thrilled and terrified him. Then I'd be honored to stay. Jamie cheered and raced off for his storybook. Eliza smiled apologetically. I don't know where he gets the energy. It's wonderful, Nicholas said honestly. He's wonderful. He is rather special. Her voice held maternal pride. Though I'm biased. Not at all. He has an extraordinary heart. Nicholas paused. As does his mother. Eliza's breath caught. For a moment they simply looked at each other, two people, recognizing something unexpected blooming, both too cautious to name it. Jamie burst back in, breaking the spell. Nicholas read aloud about knights while Jamie sat pressed against his side. Eliza brought biscuits, delicious as promised, and the scene felt so domestic, so warm, that something deep inside Nicholas thawed completely. This is what I've been missing, he thought. Not just company, but genuine connection. When the clock struck midnight, Jamie was too tired to protest bed. He extracted a promise from Nicholas to visit soon before being led upstairs. Nicholas waited, listening to soft sounds of Eliza settling her son. When she returned with 2 glasses of sherry, they settled into companionable silence. "Your son is remarkable," Nicholas said finally. "He is," Eliza smiled. "Sometimes I wonder how we created someone so perfect. He has your warmth and his father's generous spirit. Charles would have loved this evening. He was always bringing home people who needed kindness. Jamie inherited that." They fell silent, but it was comfortable, the kind between people who understand each other. "Thank you," Nicholas said, "for tonight. For seeing a stranger crying and not turning away. For reminding me there can still be warmth." Eliza's eyes glistened. "Thank you for accepting, for being kind to Jamie, for reminding me there can still be joy." Their eyes held. The air shifted, charged with something neither was ready to acknowledge. "I should go," Nicholas said reluctantly. "Yes, it's very late." Neither moved. Then Nicholas stood, offering his hand. When their fingers touched, he felt a spark that had nothing to do with static. At the door, Eliza said softly, "Nicholas, would you join us for Christmas dinner tomorrow? Jamie would be thrilled, and I would be very happy to see you again." Nicholas's heart swelled. "I would like that very much." 2 o'clock. Perfect. Acting on impulse, he took her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Thank you, Eliza, for everything." Her breath caught, cheeks flushing. "Good night, Nicholas. Merry Christmas." As he walked home through cold night air, Nicholas's mind was full of brown eyes, warm laughter, and a 5-year-old who'd decided to share his mother. For the first time in 3 weeks, he went to bed thinking not about death, but about life and possibility. Nicholas woke Christmas morning with lightness in his chest. Grief remained, but accompanied by anticipation, hope, the memory of Jamie's face, and Eliza's smile. He devoted the morning to selecting gifts, detailed lead soldiers for Jamie, and for Eliza, a leather-bound first edition of Wordsworth's poetry. "Nicholas," Jamie barreled down the hallway. "You came." "I was worried about Duke business. I could never forget you," Nicholas said, kneeling. "Merry Christmas, my friend." "Merry Christmas." Jamie hugged him fiercely. "Mama!" Nicholas brought presents. Eliza appeared in a deep green dress that brought out her eyes, hair arranged elegantly. She looked beautiful, not elaborately, but with natural grace that made Nicholas's heart race. "Merry Christmas," she said, smile lighting the hallway. "You didn't need to bring anything. It's Christmas." Jamie tore into his package. "Mama, look, they're so detailed." He looked at Nicholas with reverence. "These are magnificent." Nicholas offered Eliza her gift. When she saw the Wordsworth, her eyes lit. "A first edition? This is incredibly thoughtful." Their eyes met, and that flutter intensified. "I have something for you too," she said, retrieving a small package. Hand-knitted gloves, soft and perfectly crafted. "Did you make these? I noticed your gloves were worn." She seemed embarrassed. "These are perfect. The most thoughtful gift I've received in years." He tried them on. "How did you know my size?" "I'm rather observant." Dinner was warm chaos. Jamie's constant chatter mixed Christmas excitement with questions about Nicholas's life. Afterward, Jamie showed Nicholas every present with detailed explanations. "You're very good with him," Eliza said when Jamie ran upstairs. "Most adults lose patience. He's easy to be good with. I find myself enchanted." Charles felt the same. He said Jamie reminded him why life was worth living. "Our son sees wonder in everything." "Your husband sounds remarkable." He was. Kind, intelligent, funny. She paused. "I never expected widowhood at 28. Nicholas moved closer. "How did he die?" "A fever. Sudden. Within a week he was gone." Her eyes grew distant. The physicians couldn't explain it. "I'm so sorry. But life continues, doesn't it? We carry grief and carry on. For the ones who need us." As evening approached, they settled by the fire. Jamie, despite fighting it, began to droop. "Time for bed," Eliza said gently. "But I want Nicholas to stay," Jamie protested. "Can't he come back tomorrow? And the day after?" Nicholas found himself saying, "I would very much like to visit again, if your mother permits." After Jamie went upstairs, they sat in companionable silence. "He'll be heartbroken when you stop visiting," Eliza said quietly. "I worry about letting him grow too attached." Nicholas felt almost panicked. "What if I don't want to stop visiting?" Eliza looked at him with surprise and hope. "These 2 days have been the happiest I've felt in years," Nicholas continued. "Jamie is extraordinary, and you understand me in a way no one else does. When I'm here, I feel like myself." "I feel the same," Eliza admitted. "When you're here, it's easier to breathe. But Nicholas, Jamie has lost his father. I cannot let him depend on you only to have you disappear. What if I don't want to disappear? What if I want this to be part of my regular life?" "Are you certain?" "I don't believe the novelty will wear thin." They talked long into the evening, sharing stories, losses, hopes. Nicholas revealed things he'd never told anyone, insecurities about the dukedom, loneliness, fear he was becoming as cold as his reputation suggested. "You're not cold," Eliza said firmly. "You're guarded. There's a difference. Cold people don't cry in parks or play soldiers with 5-year-olds. When Nicholas finally left, he found himself reluctant. The walk back felt longer, colder. His townhouse seemed more cavernous than ever. But he had somewhere to return to now, someone who welcomed him, a boy who called him friend, and a woman whose smile made his heart race. It was more than he'd had in a very long time. The pattern of visits continued through winter. Nicholas found excuses to stop by Upper Brook Street several times weekly, bringing books for Jamie, discussing household matters with Eliza, simply sitting by the fire and talking. He told himself it was because of Jamie, because the boy brought him such joy. But increasingly, Nicholas had to admit the truth. It was Eliza who drew him back. Eliza's laugh, Eliza's insights, Eliza's gentle presence that made him feel more himself than he had in years. One snowy January afternoon, Nicholas arrived to find Jamie subdued, unusual for the energetic boy. "What's wrong?" Nicholas asked, kneeling beside him. "Tommy's father took him ice skating today on the Serpentine. I wanted to go, but Mama said it wasn't proper for us to go alone." His lip trembled. "I miss having a papa to do things with." Nicholas's heart clenched. He looked up at Eliza, who stood in the doorway with barely controlled distress. "What if I took you?" Nicholas heard himself say. "Would that be proper enough?" Jamie's head shot up. "Really? If your mother permits. We could go tomorrow." Eliza looked between them, emotions warring. Finally, she nodded. "If His grace is truly offering." "I am," enthusiastically, "and Eliza should come too. Make a proper outing of it." The next day they ventured to the frozen Serpentine. Edmund strapped skates onto Jamie's feet while Eliza watched, wrapped in a warm cloak. The boy was fearless, immediately trying to glide and promptly falling exactly as Nicholas had at his age. "Remember what my father told me," Nicholas said, helping him up. "Fall forward." Jamie giggled and tried again. And again. Each time he fell, he got up laughing, determined to master this skill. Nicholas found himself skating backward, holding Jamie's hands, guiding him across the ice. The boy's face was radiant with joy, and Nicholas felt something in his chest expand painfully. "This," he thought, "this is what I've been missing. This connection, this purpose." When Jamie finally tired, Nicholas skated to where Eliza stood at the edge. "Would you like to try?" he asked, offering his hand. "Oh, I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" "When did you last do something just for joy?" Eliza hesitated, then placed her gloved hand in his. Nicholas helped her onto the ice, and she wobbled immediately, clutching at his arms. "I've got you," he said softly. "I won't let you fall." They moved slowly across the ice, Eliza gripping his hands tightly, alternating between terror and delight. "This is absurd," she gasped. "I'm a respectable widow. I should not be ice skating." "You're a woman who deserves joy," Nicholas countered, "and you're doing wonderfully." As they glided across the Serpentine, Nicholas became acutely aware of how close they were, how her hands felt in his, how her laugh made his pulse quicken. This was more than friendship, more than gratitude or shared grief. This was attraction, deep, undeniable attraction. But even as he acknowledged it, Nicholas felt confusion. Was it really Eliza he was drawn to, or the package they represented, warmth, family, the way Jamie made him feel? He cared for the boy deeply, perhaps even loved him. Was he confusing feelings for the child with romantic interest in the mother? They returned Jamie to the house, the boy chattering excitedly about his skating adventure. As they said goodbye at the door, Jamie hugged Nicholas tightly. "You're the best." Nicholas, better than any papa anyone could have. The words struck Nicholas like a blow, wonderful and terrifying. Jamie was looking at him not just as a friend, but as a father figure. And Nicholas realized with sudden clarity that he wanted that role, wanted to be there for this boy, to guide him, to watch him grow. But was that fair to Eliza? To claim affection for her when his feelings might primarily be about her son? That evening, lying in bed in his silent townhouse, Nicholas forced himself to examine his heart honestly. Yes, he loved Jamie. There was no question. The boy had wormed his way into Nicholas's carefully guarded heart with his innocence and wisdom. But Eliza, when he thought of Eliza, what did he feel? He pictured her smile, the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, the gentle way she corrected Jamie without crushing his spirit, her intelligence when they discussed books or politics, the courage it took to continue living fully after devastating loss. And more than that, the way his heart raced when she entered a room, the way he found excuses to be near her, the way he'd caught himself staring at her lips and wondering what they'd feel like against his. This wasn't just gratitude or situational attachment, this was love. He was falling in love with Eliza Whitlow. The realization should have terrified him more than it did. Instead, Nicholas felt a curious sense of rightness, as if everything had been leading to this moment. But what about her? Did she feel the same? Or was he simply a convenient friend, someone to help fill the gaps left by her husband's death? Nicholas resolved to proceed carefully, to continue visiting, to deepen their friendship, to let his feelings develop naturally, and perhaps, in time, he would know if Eliza could ever see him as more than Jamie's friend. He had no way of knowing that Eliza, lying in her own bed across London, was grappling with her own revelation, that the Duke of Ravensbridge had become far more than a friend, and she had no idea what to do about it. The world frowns at those who watch stories of love, hope, and healing without sharing them with others. Those who experience beauty but keep it to themselves. Those who find light in darkness yet don't help others find it too. Hit that subscribe button and prove the world wrong. Show that you're someone who believes in second chances, in the healing power of love, in the wisdom of children who see what adults are too afraid to acknowledge. Like this video if you believe Nicholas and Eliza deserve their happiness. Comment below and tell us, have you ever been saved by an unexpected act of kindness? Share this story with someone who needs to remember that broken hearts can heal, that families can be chosen, and that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with a child's pure heart and a simple offer. You can have my mom. Don't be the one who walks away from beauty. Subscribe now, because Jamie's story, Nicholas and Eliza's story, is only beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens when grief finally gives way to desire, when fear surrenders to love, and when a little boy's Christmas wish becomes the answer to prayers no one dared to speak aloud. By late February, Nicholas's frequent visits to Upper Brook Street had not gone unnoticed. His own butler Matthews raised a carefully neutral eyebrow each time Nicholas announced his destination. His steward mentioned, with studied casualness, that certain members of the ton had begun remarking on his Grace's unusual attachment to a particular widow of modest means. The first direct confrontation came from his aunt, the Dowager Duchess of Pemberton, who arrived at his townhouse unannounced one frigid morning. She swept into his study like a storm cloud, all black silk and disapproval. "Nicholas, darling, we must discuss your recent behavior. People are talking. You've been seen repeatedly visiting the home of Mrs. Whitlow, a widow of unremarkable family, and her child. While charity is commendable, the frequency of your calls suggests something rather more than Christian kindness." Nicholas set down his pen with deliberate calm. Mrs. Whitlow and her son have become dear friends during a difficult time. Friends? His aunt's tone could have frozen brandy. A duke does not have friends among the untitled classes, Nicholas. He has dependents, associates, perhaps protégés. But friends? That implies equality that simply does not exist. More concerning, there are whispers you've developed an inappropriate attachment to this woman. You cannot possibly be considering. What I consider is my own affair. It most certainly is not. You are the Duke of Ravensbridge. Your choices affect the entire family, our standing, our alliances. Your mother, God rest her soul, would be appalled to see you throwing yourself away on some nobody widow with a child in tow. The mention of his mother ignited something dangerous in Nicholas's chest. My mother would have adored Eliza and Jamie. She would have recognized their worth, their kindness, their genuine hearts, something you seem incapable of doing. His aunt's face flushed. Do not mistake sentimentality for wisdom, Nicholas. This woman has bewitched you in your grief. You're vulnerable, lonely, and she's taking advantage. Eliza has done nothing but offer friendship when I desperately needed it. She asks for nothing, expects nothing. Your accusations are beneath contempt. Then why? His aunt leaned forward. Do you visit so constantly? Why does your face transform when you speak of them? Why has every woman I've attempted to introduce you to been dismissed without consideration? You're in love with her, aren't you? With a woman who could never be your equal. Nicholas stood, fury vibrating through him. Get out, Nicholas. Now. After she left, Nicholas stood at his window, hands trembling. His aunt had articulated the fear he'd been trying to ignore. Not that society would disapprove, he cared little for society's opinion, but that his attachment to Eliza might hurt Jamie, that the boy might grow even more attached, might begin to see Nicholas as a permanent fixture. And then what? If Nicholas's feelings weren't returned, if Eliza decided a duke's interest was too complicated, Jamie would be devastated. That evening, Nicholas arrived at Upper Brook Street to find Eliza subdued. Jamie had been sent to bed early. Is something wrong? Nicholas asked. Eliza poured tea with unusual care, not meeting his eyes. Mrs. Henderson mentioned today that people are talking about your visits, about us. She finally looked at him, distress evident. Nicholas, I would never want to damage your reputation or create difficulties for you. I don't care what people say. But I do, and more than that, I care about Jamie. He adores you. He talks about you constantly, asks when you're coming, makes plans for things you'll do together. He's starting to see you as... Her voice broke slightly. He's starting to see you as a father, Nicholas. And while that's wonderful, it also terrifies me. Because what happens when you stop coming? When you remember you're a duke with responsibilities and we're just what? Just the people who saved me when I was drowning in grief? Just the woman whose intelligence and warmth have made me feel alive again? Just the boy who taught me how to laugh? Nicholas, Eliza set down her teacup with shaking hands. You're not thinking clearly. Your grief, your loneliness, they've created an attachment that feels more significant than it is. Once time passes, once you've fully healed, you'll realize we were simply a convenient comfort, and Jamie will be left wondering why his friend abandoned him. You think I would abandon him? Not intentionally. But Nicholas, you live in a different world. Eventually you'll marry someone appropriate, have your own children, and there won't be room for us anymore. I've seen it happen. Charles's family promised to stay involved after he died, but within months the visits stopped. They had their own lives, their own concerns. We became an awkward reminder of loss, nothing more. Nicholas crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair. Eliza, look at me. I am not Charles's family. I am not here out of obligation or temporary sympathy. I'm here because I choose to be, because being with you and Jamie has become the best part of my life. For now. But, always, Nicholas said firmly. Unless you tell me to leave, I will always be here. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. I want to believe that, but I'm so afraid. Not just for Jamie, but for myself. Because I've come to depend on your visits, on your friendship. And if that were to end... It won't, Nicholas said, taking her hand. I promise you, Eliza. Whatever happens, I will never abandon you or Jamie. They sat in silence, her hand in his, both aware they'd crossed some invisible line, but neither quite ready to name what lay on the other side. The crisis came on a bitter March evening. Nicholas had just sat down to dinner when Matthews entered, face grave, extending a hastily written note. Nicholas's blood turned to ice as he read Eliza's shaking handwriting. Jamie is ill. High fever. Doctor says it's serious. Please come. He was out the door before Matthews could bring his coat, racing through London's streets with his heart in his throat. Not Jamie. Please God, not Jamie. The boy was so small, so precious. The thought of losing him was unbearable. When Nicholas burst into the Whitlow house, he found it transformed into something nightmarish. The usual warmth had been replaced by hushed voices and the smell of medicine. Eliza's maid led him upstairs with tear-stained cheeks. Jamie's bedroom was stifling hot, fire blazing to combat chills that racked the small body in the bed. The boy looked impossibly fragile against white sheets, face flushed with fever, breathing labored. Dr. Morrison stood beside the bed, face grave, and Eliza sat in a chair pulled close, holding Jamie's hand, her face a mask of controlled terror. "Nicholas," she whispered when she saw him, and something in her expression broke, as if his arrival meant she could finally stop being strong alone. Nicholas crossed to the bed, looking down at Jamie's feverish face. The boy's eyes flickered open briefly. "Nicholas," Jamie mumbled, voice barely audible. "You came." "Of course I came," Nicholas said, kneeling beside the bed, taking Jamie's other small hand. "I'll always come when you need me." "Promise." Jamie's eyes struggled to focus. "Promise you won't leave, like Papa left?" Nicholas felt something shatter inside him. "I promise, my brave boy. I'm not going anywhere." Jamie's eyes closed again, and Dr. Morrison touched Nicholas's shoulder. "Your Grace, might I speak with you and Mrs. Whitlow privately?" In the hallway, the doctor's words were grave. "The fever is dangerously high. We're doing everything possible, but the next 24 hours will be critical. I'll stay through the night. You should prepare yourselves for any outcome." Eliza swayed, and Nicholas caught her, his own vision blurring with unshed tears. "No," Eliza whispered. "No, he has to be all right. He has to be. I can't lose him. I can't lose another." Her control finally broke, sobs racking her body. Nicholas held her, his own tears falling into her hair. "He'll fight. He's strong. He's the strongest person I know." They returned to Jamie's bedside, taking up positions on either side. Nicholas refused to leave, refused even to sit. He stood holding Jamie's hand, watching the labored breathing, praying with an intensity he hadn't felt since his mother's death. The night stretched endlessly. Dr. Morrison applied cool compresses, administered medicines, monitored the fever with increasing concern. Eliza spoke softly to Jamie, telling him stories, reminding him of happy memories, begging him to fight. And Nicholas stood, Jamie's small hand in his, making promises to God he'd never broken before. "If you let him live," Nicholas whispered into the darkness, "I'll never take him for granted again. I'll be the father he needs. I'll protect him and Eliza with everything I have. Just please, please let him live." Near dawn, Jamie's breathing grew more labored. Dr. Morrison's face darkened with concern. Eliza's quiet strength finally crumbled completely, and she buried her face against Nicholas's chest, sobbing. "I can't do this again," she gasped. "I can't watch another person I love die. I can't. Nicholas, I can't." "You won't," Nicholas said fiercely, though his own heart was breaking. "He's going to fight. He's going to win. Because he's Jamie, and he's the bravest person in the world." He looked down at the boy in the bed, this child who had approached a crying duke in a park and changed his entire world. This precious, perfect child who had taught Nicholas how to feel again, how to love again. The thought of a world without Jamie's laughter was unbearable. "Fight," Nicholas whispered, leaning close to Jamie's ear. "Fight, my boy. We need you. Your mother needs you. I need you. Please fight." Just before sunrise, the fever broke. Dr. Morrison, checking Jamie's temperature for perhaps the 100th time, looked up with cautious relief. "The fever's dropping. His breathing's easier. I believe he's through the worst." Eliza collapsed in her chair, sobbing with relief. Nicholas felt his legs weaken, had to grip the bedpost to stay upright. Jamie's eyes flickered open, clearer now, and he looked at Nicholas with something like wonder. "You stayed," Jamie whispered. "Always," Nicholas said, his voice breaking. "I told you. I'll always stay when you need me. I love you," Jamie said simply, then drifted into natural sleep. Nicholas stood frozen, those 3 words reverberating through his entire being. This child loved him, and Nicholas realized with absolute clarity that he loved this child right back, loved him as fiercely as any father could love a son. And looking at Eliza, seeing the tears streaming down her face, seeing the way she looked at him with gratitude and something deeper, something that made his heart race despite the exhaustion, Nicholas realized the full truth he'd been avoiding. He didn't just love Jamie, he loved Eliza, loved her with every fiber of his being, loved her strength, her gentleness, her fierce maternal protection, her intelligence, her warmth, loved the way she smiled, the way she laughed, the way she saw straight through his defenses to the man beneath. He loved them both, completely, irreversibly. And almost losing Jamie had shown him exactly how precious time was, how foolish it would be to waste another moment in fear or hesitation. 2 days later, with Jamie recovering and sleeping peacefully, Nicholas found Eliza in the parlor. She'd barely left her son's side, and exhaustion marked her face. But when she saw Nicholas, her expression softened with something that made his breath catch. "How is he?" Nicholas asked, though he'd checked on Jamie himself just an hour before. "Better. Asking for biscuits, which Dr. Morrison says is an excellent sign." Eliza's smile was wan, but genuine. "Nicholas, I don't know how to thank you. You stayed through everything. You were..." Her voice broke. "You were exactly what we needed. There's nowhere else I would have been." Nicholas moved closer, heart pounding. "Eliza, when Jamie was ill, when I thought we might lose him, I realized something. Several things, actually. Nicholas, please, let me say this before I lose my courage." He took a deep breath. "I realized that Jamie has become like a son to me, that somewhere between soldiers and ice skating and bedtime stories, I fell in love with that remarkable, brave, wonderful boy. The thought of losing him nearly destroyed me." Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "He loves you too, as much as he loved his father, more than I ever thought possible after Charles died. And I realized something else." Nicholas took her hands, holding them gently. "I realized that my feelings for you have nothing to do with gratitude or convenience or Jamie. I love you, Eliza. I'm in love with you. With your strength, your intelligence, your warmth. With the way you see me as Nicholas, not the Duke. With everything you are." Eliza's breath caught, tears spilling over. "Nicholas, You don't have to say anything," Nicholas continued quickly. "I know the situation is complicated. I know society will have opinions. I know I'm asking you to consider something difficult. But I had to tell you the truth, because life is too short and too precious to waste time hiding from what matters most." "You think I haven't been hiding too?" Eliza whispered. "Nicholas, I've been terrified of these feelings. Terrified of admitting that I've fallen in love with you, that I think about you constantly, that I find excuses to see you, that when you walk into a room my entire world becomes brighter. I loved Charles with all my heart, and I thought that meant I could never love anyone else. But you've shown me that the heart doesn't work that way, that love doesn't diminish previous love. It expands, it grows." Nicholas felt as if he couldn't quite catch his breath. "You love me?" "Yes," Eliza said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, you impossible man. I love you. I've loved you since you read to Jamie with such patience, since you held my hand while ice skating, since you looked at my son like he mattered more than anything in the world. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Why terrifying?" "Because loving you means risking everything. Risking my heart, risking Jamie's heart. If this doesn't work, if society proves too difficult, if you change your mind..." Nicholas pulled her closer, his hands framing her face gently. "I will never change my mind. Eliza, you and Jamie have become my entire world. The thought of living without you is unbearable. I want to wake up every morning knowing I'll see you that day. I want to teach Jamie to ride horses and help him with his lessons and embarrass him when he's older by telling stories about his childhood. I want to grow old with you, to build a life that's full of warmth and laughter instead of cold duty. Nicholas." Eliza's voice was barely a whisper. "Marry me," Nicholas said, the words emerging with absolute certainty. "Not because of society or propriety or anything except love. Marry me because I love you and you love me and we deserve to be happy. Marry me and let me be Jamie's father, legally and truly. Let me give you both my name, my protection, everything I have. Please, Eliza, marry me." Eliza looked at him, tears streaming freely now. "Are you certain? Truly certain? Because once I say yes, once Jamie hears this, there's no going back. He'll expect you to stay forever." "Good," Nicholas said fiercely, "because forever is exactly what I'm promising." "Then yes," Eliza said, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Yes, Nicholas, yes, I'll marry you." Nicholas pulled her close, and for a long moment they simply held each other, both overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd just committed to. Then, gently, Nicholas tilted her face up to his. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. "Please," Eliza whispered. The kiss was tender at first, gentle and questioning. But as Eliza's hands moved to his shoulders and Nicholas pulled her closer, it deepened into something that spoke of longing and promise and desire finally acknowledged. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, both slightly dazed. "My goodness," Eliza murmured. "Indeed," Nicholas agreed, his voice rough. "Nicholas," Jamie's voice called from upstairs, still weak but definitely alert. "Are you still here?" They looked at each other and laughed, the moment perfectly interrupted by the boy who had brought them together. "I think," Nicholas said. We should tell him together. When they entered Jamie's room, the boy brightened immediately. You're both here, and Mama's smiling. Does that mean I can have biscuits now? Something better than biscuits, Nicholas said, sitting on the edge of the bed, while Eliza took her usual chair. Jamie, how would you feel if I stayed here permanently? If I became part of your family officially? Jamie's eyes widened. You mean like you'd be my new papa? If you'd want that, Nicholas said gently. Your mother and I have decided to get married, which means I would be your stepfather. I could never replace your real father, he'll always be your papa. But I could be Papa Nicholas perhaps, if that would make you happy. Jamie looked between them, his small face processing this enormous information. Then his face split into a grin that made Nicholas's heart soar. Really? You're going to marry Mama? And stay forever? And be my papa? Really and truly, Eliza confirmed. What do you think? I think, Jamie said seriously, that this is the best thing that's happened since Christmas. Better than soldiers, better than ice skating, even better than biscuits. He looked at Nicholas with shining eyes. I told you could have my Mama. I knew she was perfect for you. Nicholas laughed, the sound full of joy. You were absolutely right. She is perfect. And so are you. Jamie held out his arms, and Nicholas gathered him close, mindful of his lingering weakness. Eliza joined them, and for a long moment the three of them simply held each other, a family created not by blood but by choice, by love, by a 5-year-old's impulsive kindness on a snowy Christmas Eve. They married 6 weeks later in a small, private ceremony that scandalized some segments of society and delighted others. Nicholas wore his finest coat, but it was the joy on his face that made him handsome. Eliza wore a dress of pale blue silk that made her eyes luminous, and Jamie, serving as ring-bearer with utmost seriousness, wore a miniature version of Nicholas's attire and took his responsibilities gravely. When the vicar pronounced them husband and wife, Nicholas kissed his bride with such tender passion that even the most cynical observers found themselves moved. And when Jamie launched himself at both of them, demanding inclusion in the family hug, there wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. They moved into Nicholas's Grosvenor Square townhouse, which Eliza immediately began transforming from a cold, formal showplace into a warm home. Nicholas's servants, initially uncertain about the new Duchess and her son, quickly fell under Jamie's spell and grew to love Eliza's kindness and practical good sense. The boy adapted to his new life with characteristic enthusiasm. He explored every room of the vast house, declared the library his favorite place in the world, and convinced Nicholas to turn one of the unused rooms into a playroom large enough for elaborate battle reenactments. I'm going to be a general when I grow up, Jamie announced one evening at dinner. Or maybe a duke like you, Papa Nicholas. Can I be both? You can be anything you choose, Nicholas assured him. Though being a duke isn't something one chooses, it's inherited. But you'll inherit this dukedom someday, so you'll definitely be a duke eventually. Jamie's eyes widened with the realization. I'll be the Duke of Ravensbridge? Like a real duke? A very real duke, Eliza confirmed with a smile. Though that's many, many years away. For now, you're just our Jamie. I like being just Jamie, the boy decided. Being a duke sounds rather complicated. It can be, Nicholas admitted. But having you and your mother makes it infinitely better. Society eventually accepted the marriage, though some matrons continued to whisper about the unsuitability of a widow of modest means becoming a duchess. Nicholas and Eliza ignored them, too happy in their new life to care about small-minded gossip. The greatest joy came 5 months after their marriage, when Eliza shyly informed Nicholas that she was with child. His reaction, picking her up and spinning her around before remembering he should be careful, made her laugh until she cried. We're having a baby? Jamie asked when told the news. A real baby that I can teach things to? A real baby, Eliza confirmed. You'll be a wonderful big brother. I'll teach him about soldiers, Jamie said seriously, and how to be brave, and how Papa Nicholas saved Mama and me by not being too proud to sit on a bench and cry. The baby, a daughter they named Charlotte Margaret, was born the following spring. Jamie doted on her with fierce protectiveness, demanding to hold her, declaring her the most beautiful baby in London, and promising to fight anyone who ever made her sad. Nicholas found fatherhood both terrifying and wonderful. Holding his tiny daughter, watching Jamie teach her very gently about his toy soldiers, coming home each evening to Eliza's smile and his children's laughter, he sometimes had to pause just to take it all in. to marvel at how completely his life had transformed. One snowy Christmas Eve, exactly 2 years after Jamie had approached a crying Duke in Hyde Park, the family gathered in their parlour. Charlotte slept in her cradle, tiny fists curled against her chest. Jamie sat on the floor, arranging soldiers for an elaborate battle, and Nicholas and Eliza curled together on the sofa, watching their children with contentment. "Do you remember where we were 2 years ago?" Nicholas asked softly. "How could I forget?" Eliza smiled. "My son offered you to me like I was a spare biscuit. Best offer I ever received." "Nicholas, look." Eliza gestured toward the window. Snow had begun to fall, thick and beautiful, transforming the square outside into something magical. It looked remarkably like that night in Hyde Park, the night everything changed. "I should take a walk," Nicholas said with mock seriousness. "Sit on a bench in the snow, see if any other children appear with life-changing suggestions." "Don't you dare," Eliza laughed. "I'm quite happy with the family we have." "Papa Nicholas." Jamie looked up from his soldiers. "Do you still get sad sometimes?" "About your mama dying?" "Sometimes," Nicholas admitted. "Missing people we love never completely goes away, but it gets easier, especially when surrounded by new people to love." "That's what Mama said about Papa," Jamie said. "She said she'll always miss him, but now she's happy again too. She said you can hold sadness and happiness in your heart at the same time, and both are okay." Nicholas looked at his wife with profound love. "Your mother is very wise." Later, after Jamie had been tucked into bed with elaborate rituals and Charlotte had been fed and settled, Nicholas and Eliza stood at the nursery door watching their children sleep. "Are you happy?" Nicholas asked quietly. "Happier than I ever imagined I could be again," Eliza said honestly. "You've given me everything, Nicholas. A home, security, love. You've given Jamie a father who adores him. You've given us a family. You gave me those things first," Nicholas countered. "When I was broken and alone, drowning in grief, you welcomed me in. You and Jamie taught me how to live again, how to feel again. You saved me, Eliza. We saved each other." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their children breathe. Then Nicholas pulled Eliza close, resting his chin on top of her head. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saying yes, for taking a chance on a crying Duke in the snow, for loving me. Thank you for being brave enough to accept kindness from a 5-year-old who doesn't understand that Dukes aren't supposed to need help." Nicholas smiled. That 5-year-old was wiser than most adults I know. Outside, snow continued to fall on London, on Hyde Park, on the bench where a Duke had broken and a child had offered unexpected salvation. The world turned, seasons changed, but inside the Duke of Ravensbridge's home, warmth endured, laughter echoed, love flourished. And in the morning, Jamie would wake early and run to his parents' room as he always did, climb into their bed, and demand stories about the day Papa Nicholas met him and Mama in the snow. He never tired of that story, of how one act of simple kindness on a cold Christmas Eve had created a family bound not by blood or duty, but by choice and love, and the pure heart of a boy who believed everyone deserved to be happy. Especially Dukes who forgot how to cry could be saved by 5-year-olds who remembered that crying sometimes helped. Are you really going to scroll past this story without hitting that subscribe button? Are you seriously going to let Nicholas and Eliza's journey end here, in your memory, when you could be joining thousands of others who refuse to let beautiful stories die unshared? Let me be very clear about what you're doing if you don't engage with this video right now. You're telling the universe that love stories don't matter, that second chances aren't worth celebrating, that the healing power of unexpected kindness should remain hidden instead of spread across this broken world that desperately needs reminding that hope exists. So here's what you're going to do, and yes, I'm telling you, not asking. You will subscribe, comment, and like, because we have dozens of stories ready. Stories of love that heals, passion that ignites, hope that refuses to die. Stories that will make you laugh and cry and believe in happily ever after again. Stories that remind you why romance matters, why love matters, why we tell these tales generation after generation. But I can't bring you those stories if you don't subscribe. I can't create more content if you don't engage. I can't build this community of romance lovers if you stay silent. So do it right now. Subscribe, like, comment. Share this with someone who needs to remember that lonely dukes can find families, that widows can love again, that children's wisdom can change the world. Don't be the person who experiences beauty and keeps it to themselves. Be the person who spreads it, Be the person who helps others find light in darkness. I'm watching the subscriber count. I'm reading every comment. I see you. And I'm grateful for every single person who chooses to be part of this community. Thank you for watching. Thank you for feeling. Thank you for believing that love stories still matter in this cynical world. Now hit that subscribe button and prove you're someone who refuses to let beautiful things die unshared. See you next time for more love, more passion, more proof that happy endings exist for those brave enough to reach for them. Until then, remember what Jamie taught us. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with simple kindness and a pure heart willing to say, "Don't be sad. You can have my mom." Subscribe, comment, share. Now. Thank you.